I remember going to some of the earlier CanJams in SoCal, and I was shocked by two things. Number one, the level of innovation from mom and pop companies. I mean, and high-end audio has, in most cases, always been one or two brilliant people. I mean, David Burning is a perfect example. I mean, the guy behind, a lot of the stuff that you guys do. I mean, he's a genius. I mean, there's no other way to describe David Burning. He is a genius. There are a lot of really interesting guys in the personal audio side, going back the last 10 years, who came up with some very innovative headphones. And, these were guys who literally were like working in their garages and like sitting there every night after coming home from their day job and trying to figure out, how am I going to make like the next new innovative thing in headphone design? So I was very impressed, number one, by the level of innovation from people. But the second thing was the age group. One of the things that has really killed high-end audio, and I say this as someone who's just turned 50 and has been an audiophile since he was 10 or 11, high-end audio has never really been that friendly to people who are young. I know from my experience, just buying my first couple stereos in my 20s from stores in New York, I will not name, treated with just total disdain. Even if I had the cash, sitting in my hand that this is what I was going to spend today, just like this look. Well, you're not some old white dude, or some white-haired person who's going to like drop like their life savings on a stereo. So, I mean, I can understand why someone in their 20s, if they were to walk into an audio store, would feel like it's total disconnect, from what they're looking at. But on the personal audio side, if you go to any of the headphone shows, and I really recommend that people go to these CanJams when we're allowed to again.
I'll 100% back you up. You should totally go to these CanJams. What's super interesting there is the different people you see.
Yes.
Ages, genders, shapes, right, sizes, colors. It's a panoply of people that you don't necessarily get at at the 2-channel side of things. And I also encourage people to look into not just the CanJams, but the headphone. If you are into headphones a little bit, you can headphone.com.
.com, yeah.
They hold in lots of cities across the country and in the world. They hold little meetups, and those are just individuals bringing their gear. And it's a great way to experience the community and also just gear on a really small level.
Yeah, I mean, actually, that's a great point. Over the last 5 years, I've had a chance to go to, there was a mini CanJam that was held in Atlanta a couple of years ago. And at the time, I was working on a marketing end for a company, and I got to go to the Atlanta show for 3 days. And it was so much fun. I mean, see, that's one of the problems that I have with hi-fi shows. Hi-fi shows are not fun. And, I've always said to people that it's impossible to judge a loudspeaker truly from a hi-fi show experience. I mean, don't ever walk into a hi-fi show and go into a hotel room with 5/8 of an inch thick MDF walls, and listen to a pair of $80,000 speakers and think that you're really getting, a proper sort of experience with that. I just think that that's just not the case. But on the headphone side, I mean, you put the headphones on your head, and especially if they're closed back, you're not hearing the rest of the room. I mean, basically what you're hearing between your ears is what you're hearing. And I think for a lot of people, personal audio has become a thing also because we all stream. And I think all of our music listening experiences are so unique and so different. And what I listen to on my Qobuz or Tidal playlist is not necessarily what you listen to on your, and, as someone who used to commute on the train from New York City down to the shore every day, that was like your hour every morning and every afternoon after a long day to kind of lose yourself. And obviously I can't walk in the house after a long day and just crank up one of my stereo rigs while my wife's doing homework with 3 kids and be like, yeah, I'm going to listen to Metallica for the next 3 hours at 94 dB. I can't do that. And I think that applies to 95% of the population on the planet.
And that's the way it works at the shows too. I mean, when you talk about evaluating things, when you're going to a 2-channel hotel room, if you sit there for more than a few minutes in the listening position, you start to feel a little bit uncomfortable because you're looking around and you're saying, am I taking anybody's space? And you don't have, and the other thing is you don't have control over the music. Go into the headphone area and you control the music. And for the most part, you can sit there for as long as you want.
Yeah, and it's like I've been to a couple of the local headphone events in New York on Long Island, and they were packed. And it was like it's a Saturday afternoon. This was about 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, and it was a July day. It was 85 degrees out in Nassau County, and I mean, it was somewhat of an audiophile crowd to a degree, but I mean, all these people literally walking in with their portable players and their cell phones and their cables and their, I mean, it was like, that's one thing, obviously, like you can't do at a hi-fi show. Because if I walked into any manufacturer's room, even as a journalist, and said, here's my player,
Right.
Disconnect your $100,000 rig and plug this in, they'd ask you to leave.
Right. I want to try your amp, so I brought my own speakers with
Yeah,
me.
my
Can
own
I bring
speakers
those
with me.
in?
Yeah,
You got a hand
exactly.
truck?